Cool. So good morning, everybody, and thank you for joining us here on the playing field. My name is Stephen Dillon. Excited to be joined today also by Jose Figuera, who is working together on this current Coaching Focus webinar series. Over the last 5 weeks, we've had 5 different speakers, all of different industries across the world. Very excited today to welcome Singh, or Coach Sunz, as more is affectionately known. For those that are mainly involved in the call today, you'll know him predominantly from the world of football, having spent a lot of time domestically here in New Zealand and also with our national team. But you'll also may know him from a number of other sports as well, including rugby, rugby league, MMA, running, long distance running, and a number of other events. So very, very lucky to have Sunz with us today. The reason this is more special, of course, is because the All Whites are soon to be heading away to the FIFA World Cup in Canada, USA and Mexico, and Sunz is a key part of the team there as a strength and conditioning coach. So knowing how close we are, Sunz, to the World Cup, and knowing how busy you are with your business and your other commitments, we do appreciate your time today, and they're very much looking forward to some of your insights, which you can share with those that are tuning in here live on the call, but those that will be watching later on. So Sunz, again, thank you for joining us from Sydney this morning. He's got his coffee ready, which means he's got some hints and tips to share. But Sunz, again, thank you on behalf of the group, and look forward to hearing from you this morning.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me.
So what we'll do is we'll crack into a presentation. So typically we'll do these for 35 minutes. Those that have been joining us on the call so far will know that there's a chat feature which you can ask some questions on. And again, at an appropriate time, we can also share those with Sunz either during or later on. But very much encourage those are here to be interactive and ask some questions with Sunz, and learn from one of the most prolific strength and conditioning coaches in our region. So thank you again, Sunz, and over to you.
All right, so firstly, I always, it's a privilege for me to do these. I don't take these lightly. Whenever I get to speak within the field, I really look forward to it, because I've always said it when I started, I want to help create like this army of like weapon field of just coaches from S&C, technical coaches, analysts, everybody working together to make the field better. So that's when I got into it. I was like, man, how can we just share information and just make everything better? And, starting with myself, I used to play football, of course, born in South Africa, moved to New Zealand in 2001. And my goal was to be, pro footballer. And of course, I've got some massive, injuries at 19, but that's not the excuse. I don't think I was good enough to be a pro. You know what I mean? I had fitness, I had speed. I don't think I had the technical ability. If you put me in tight space to get out of it, there's a good chance I'd kick it out safety first. So that was me. But I ended up, going into university, etc., and into the physio route. And while I was doing physiotherapy, 2.5 years into physio, and back in the early 2000s at 03, I only knew physiotherapy as being in a clinic, go to somewhere, that's it. Versus now, it's so heavily involved in sport with your physios. And to me, I was like, no, this is not for me. I'm way too sporty to be trapped in a clinic. So then I left physio and I applied for a scholarship in sports science and got that. And while I was doing my bachelor's degree in sports science, I was like, man, there needs to be a gym or a place that caters for all sorts of athletes. And of course, I was going to heavily push on football, because that's where I'm really passionate about. Because I saw there was this, of course, you've high performance sport, New Zealand, etc. And to get that sort of level of care, you needed to be carded. And if you're not carded, how do you get that level of care and guidance or structure in regards to being an athlete outside of your code training? So outside of our general, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday field sessions, what do you do? Is it bicep curls and triceps? You know what I mean? And that's not going to be beneficial. So in my third year, I planned on opening a gym. when I finished. And so that whole year, I just planned it while doing my last year in my degree. And yeah, 2013, I opened up a gym on the North Shore in Wairau, and literally was where it all started. And I'm going to bounce back and forth between 2009, while I was doing my university degree, I approached Albany United under 19. And I told them, look, you don't have to pay me anything. Just give me your team and let me do my work. All I want is 30 minutes at the start of your session. The 2 sessions a week, just give me 30 minutes and I'll do the rest. So they gave me under 19 team, and there was this 2-tier systems, like the top group of under 19s in the Auckland wide comp. And then there was a below second, and they were like, okay, how do we get up there? And we ended up finishing on the top of that 2nd tier under 19s purely because we were so fit, And my thing was, when I started that and wanted and knew where I wanted to be, was when you played us, a team that I work for, I want it to be the hardest day of your life. Whether we win or lose, but if you're playing us, you just need to know that you're going to have to work your bollocks off. So with that mentality in my head, I was like, right, I'm taking it. Took the under 19, and the following year, 2010, the senior team was like, oh, you can take it was Div 1 then, you can take the Div 1 team. And then we started adding an extra day of just pure fitness work and strengthening work on the field. At that time, I didn't have a gym, or there was no, funding to take the team to a gym. So I made do with what I had to do on the field, and then continued that while I was doing my degree. And as I mentioned earlier, I wanted to open that gym. So 2013, I opened the gym, started pulling through, and then, Northcote rugby boys started coming through. They were training, and then Tom Abercrombie came through from the Breakers. And then people were wondering, like, what's going on? Who is this guy that these people are going to? And then the word spread, like they started seeing people doing well and individual footballers training in a way that they'll only see online outside of NZ. 2014, Glenfield Rovers at the time, before the joining happened, contacted me and go, can we, train with you in the gym? We need something extra. And that's the year they started really slow, the first 4 games. And then they came and go, look, we need this. So 2 times in a week, they came to me in the gym, full hour sessions in the gym, and then they 2 field sessions. And then they went on 2014 to win the Northern Prems then. 2015, Forest Hill, Mulligan and Andy Boyens were there. They were like, look, can you come and do something? Because the boys were already training with me, and they go, you know what, you need to get Sunz down, and he could help us. So we did that, started adding more, started catching more, light. And along these lines in these times, you got everybody else coming. The start of 2014, Israel Adesanya turned up. And now he was big in the kickboxing scene. So while football's going on, that's happening. 2015, we win Div 1 and we get promoted into the Premier League with Forest Hill. And then I met Peter Smith towards the end of the 2015, because he was head coach for Waibop in National League. And at the time, Mulligan was also speaking to Auckland City. So we had Auckland City, and then I think it was Dylan Stansfield who was like, nah, you need to speak to Peter Smith, because all the boys were thinking about, we're probably going to go to Waibop team. And then I was like, I don't know what, all I knew about Auckland City was they were the big team of the country. And I'm someone that I don't like to be controlled in my job. So this is just my own perception and how I was thinking about things. I was like, man, what if I go to this big team and they control me? Would I like it or not? And then I said, nah, you know what? Let me go meet Peter Smith. And if somebody had told me what a Scottish accent was, but I would have taken a translator with me, because even the English I was struggling. So, but that was great. And I met Peter, and I was like, this is my people. You know what I mean? Like we got on. And I'm very much a person that first interactions, leave the biggest impression on me. And I used to sign contracts on handshakes. I never needed no pen to paper. Like if I gave you my word, I gave you my word. But I knew, because I was still battling New Zealand and SNC, because most coaches didn't want it. Most coaches believed it was bodybuilding. Most coaches believed players are going to be slow. It's going to impact the work on the field. So like I say, from you got 09 to that 2014 where I did that battling of let me get in, and slowly they started seeing it. And then 2015, got to YBOP, planned this great like preseason, brought the boys to Auckland. The boys used to come to my gym, park at my gym in the North Shore, and I said, boys, you guys are training. I don't want you to drive. I'll do the driving. So we'd drive down to Waikato. We'll train there 3 times a week, drive back, and I'd drive still another hour and a half north. So I'm reaching home at midnight. Got to wake up again at 3:30 to open the gym at 5:30. So that was it. But our trips down to Waikato was the most amazing thing, stopping at the Autobahn for our snack before training, getting to training, like all the boys just bought in to everything. We just worked hard. So, and I'll fast forward into that season. Every time we played a team, they'd come up to me and be like, man, what are you feeding these guys? What is going on? Because it's like, we just have to work so hard when we know we're playing YBOP. Because that was a standard. You turn up, work hard, go home. Whatever happens, happens. And that was a year we finished 4th equal, but goal difference pushed us to 5th. The points was 4th equal, then top 4 makes playoff, and so it was that close. So that was a great season, and one that also set me up to be like, hey, who is this guy doing what he's doing with these football teams, and why are they doing so well on the field? And then again, we had a lot of the players that were playing at Central. At the time it was Central. And I was training them, and Jose you were coaching there at Central, and the Adams, the Marios, everybody started training with me. And so I was like, okay, this is starting to catch some light. But I never got, I guess, sidetracked by training that started catching light, the influencer side of training nowadays with social media. And everybody was trying to make training so specific off the field. And my stance was, as an S&C coach, my job is to train muscles involved in the actions. I don't train the actions in the gym. So that was the biggest thing for me, is to try, because a lot of the times it was seen as boring training with me, because you come in, you do your squats, your deadlifts, whatever you needed to do. We did a couple of speed sessions always in a week, because that's where I'm heavy in, doing a lot of speed. And people were like, so is that what we do? And I tried getting into them for the next 10 years, 15 years. If that's how long your career is, you'll be squatting for 15 years to get used to it. You can't decide you want to run a marathon and then train every single training on a bicycle and be better at running. You know what I mean? So it was like, this is what you got to do. We just support what happens on the field. So once I got that, and I got that into trainers, this is what we need to do, because we got to take what happens on the field, those actions, and go break it down. Then, okay, what muscles produce those actions, and how can I train it? Because at the end of the day, when you're doing your football sessions, you're still training. You're still activating your muscles. You're accelerating, you're decelerating, you're changing in direction, you're sprinting, you're having resistance with duels with players. So you're doing those dynamic and ballistic movements. Now, my job is to just support that you can do that each week. So that's how we went on. And then, from YBOP, that was like, I thought was probably one of my best stepping stones. And I went to Eastern Suburbs. So I went into Eastern Suburbs with Malcolm McPherson. And that's when Eastern Suburbs were getting into the National League. And again, same thing, wanted to set the standard. And I guess for me, it was a no-brainer. Like, I'm not easily influenced by who's standing in front of me. I'm the same in regards to how I speak to everyone and the standards I demand. So when I got to Eastern Suburbs and with Malcolm McPherson, and he was just like, hit this and do that, I was like, okay, that's what you're going to do. And then we're getting into the National League. And yeah, we've got all these players come in from all over the world and doing all of that. And great, again, another great season for the first time in the National League, trying to marry different personalities and make them all one, which is the hardest job. And I think often people don't see that. And it's more the coaches, the head coach is trying to do that. But I feel as an S&C, if you can assist your head coaches and assistant coaches in building a culture, it just makes it stronger, because then it aligns from top to bottom. So when it just comes from one voice, I think it becomes hard, because that's what I found in the start of my journey working in football. Like, I'd turn up when I first started, okay, this is my job, blinkers, that's all I'm doing, and I'm leaving. But then I'm like, I'm a very personable person and I'm always human first. So I started listening to players and figuring out what they want to do. And I became like this connection between the coaches and the players very early on. So I'd feed into the coach would feed into me. I'd go to players, and I sort of reason, because I mean, you guys work in football, a lot of you, and players are never happy. They always want something. And that's because they always want to strive to be better. They want things. Of course, you have to have a level of selfishness, which is great. I believe it, because I'm selfish as well, because I want to be the best that I can be. But sometimes when you work in a team sport, you have to go that, okay, you trying to be the best that you can be, how is it influencing people through your actions of trying to be the best that you can be? Is it deemed as purely selfish and he's out to get his own, or are you taking others with you? So I was like, you know what, let me do this in a manner that I can be the best that I can be, but I want people to be like, I want to jump on his bus. And my doors on the bus were always open. If you want help, jump on the bus, let's go, because you can help me too. And I told it, and I always spoke this to younger S&Cs that approach me in that, 2015 to like probably 2017, what they can do. And I go, don't look at me as this person up here that you can only learn from me. I could learn from you, because you could say things that I never thought of, because our lens are different. We perceive things different. Our experiences through life allow us to perceive it differently. So listening to others helped me become who I am and how I work with players and coaches. So I'm going to jump again now. We move into Suburbs second year with Danny Hay was the coach and Declan Edge at Eastern Suburbs. And yeah, another unbelievable season. And then I go with Eastern Suburbs, because we have this in S&C, it's so like data driven sometimes, and we've got to do this test and we've got to do that test preseason, and we've got to do this and check that. And your yo-yo was so heavily around and all these tests. But we got to the point where let's just use football to train our fitness. Because in regards to motivation for a player, if there's no football, they don't want to just run. So that year that we worked Danny Hay and Declan Edge, our sessions, fitness and conditioning sessions, involved the ball. And probably the fittest, like I've seen a team close to that, the YBOP and the Suburbs National League, the one where we won the National League, we literally just trained so hard on the ball. And then that's when people go, okay, so you don't have to do this extra running. Like, I'm not saying move away from the running. I'm just saying, how can we use what they do to our sort of advantage? Like, how can we get them to buy in? Because when you buy in, you get more intent. More intent produces better fruit. That's what I believe and my experience. So anything I say or I do is purely through my experience, and I'm always aware, each step of the way, I'm always aware of things I'm doing. I don't just do it for the sake of doing it, but I also like keeping things very simple. And for me, simple and basic does not mean easy. It just means I only have a few things to really concentrate on. because the mind, if I'm giving you feedback as a player, can only really concentrate on one or two pieces of information and then try and go through this process of, okay, let's reassess, did I do that action correct? But if I have this complex process and system, then there's too many variables that could go out that I can't control, and my product becomes really weak, or the quality of my fruit is not that great. So I pick steps or process that will add the greatest amount of value to my goals. If my goals is to be the fittest, this is what I need to do, X, Y, and Z. I've got 10 things there, and of the 10, which 5 gives me the best value? Those are the 5 I'm going to focus on. Are we going to be a playing style sort of team? Then this is what we're going to do in terms of our training. There's so many different variables. You as, coaches, etc., teams that you're working with, you've got to sit down with coaches and go, what's our goal? Are we going to be this fancy playing style team? Are we going to be this hard pressing team? What are we going to do? So how we play will dictate how we train. How we train will dictate what 5, 6, whatever number you choose, things that we're going to focus on. Once you focus that and you do it for a period of time, that stuff becomes habits. And you'll find that that list continually evolves. One thing's now gone off it, something else you feel can come in. Got it. 2 things have now become such a habit, you can start working on that second half of the list. But when you put everything down and go, right, I want to do this, it doesn't generally work as well as you want, because like I mentioned, you've got too many things to control and too many factors influencing it. We just have to be real with ourselves in the sense that we have lives outside of sport. And what happens when we leave the car park of our training ground? No coach, not me, not the head coach or assistant coach, the physios. Nobody knows what's happening when we jump in the car and we're driving on the way home. Nobody knows what we're really dealing with when we get home. Nobody knows if we actually are going home. My job's done. That's it. Yeah, I'll see you next week, Thursday. You know what I mean? So when we work in, I guess, this level, from a regional level, it's very hard to take what you see online in terms of, they go, a professional club does this. I say you take what a professional club does and have its framework and go, right, how can I make it digestible for the population that's in front of me? How can this work, or how can my population fit within this mold? But your mold has to be flexible. It's not a rigid one. I always say, S&Cs, we have discussions and sports scientists, and they go, this study did that, and that study done that. And then I read the study, but that study was in a controlled environment. So how can we apply that protocol from a controlled environment into an environment that we have no control outside of the football field and gym? So for me, it became heavily trying to understand players and personally building that trust with players. And I've worked with Peter, Jose, and stuff. And when you work with me, you'll understand that I don't really care about the athlete. I care about the human. That's 2 different people. When I get you to see that I'm human just like you, I'll understand the athlete. And when I understand the human and athlete, the numbers make even more sense. So we are very guided by GPS, etc., and all these things now. But sometimes we have to take our blinkers off, because you often get reports coming back from GPS and go, oh, this person didn't do that. It didn't work hard enough. That was not good enough. Okay, but did you watch the game? The game, you're just purely looking at a number and outing a player, saying they haven't done this, they haven't done that, you haven't hit your mark. But what happened in the game? We can't predict what happens in a game. We can control our actions, yes, but sometimes you have to literally strip it back and go, look, that game didn't allow for this much output, or didn't allow for these actions. So that's the hardest part. And I caught myself doing that as well when I first started. and we're trying to use GPS, etc. And funny story talking about GPS. First year National League, I never had GPS at Eastern Suburb, never had GPS at YBOP. But what I used to do was when we go set the fields out, the rondos and different things, while the coaches are getting ready, I'll be outside. I'll be walking each square inside and pretty literally going. So if a player, I know in a rondo, he's going to potentially move this way. I know he can only go there and come back. And I'd predict, okay, so that amount of distance is about 1 meter, 2 meters. And I'd watch one player the whole week, and in my book, I'd just tick. And I'm trying to predict meters that he's running. Literally trying to do that. So I did that through YBOP. I used to watch Mario in the midfield. Then I used to watch Fred Cochran and all these boys all of them there. I'm like, okay, so I know the style of play, and I walk the length, and I go, okay, if he's playing on the wing, from that box to that box, that training field is about 60 meters. And I know the training plan that I got. Okay, we're going to be doing 15 minutes of that, and I'll count how many times he's gone from that box to that box. And I know it's 60 meters based on my steps that I took. And these are not accurate, but it's giving me a guide of, okay, this is potentially what they're doing in a session. And I went and did that second season with Eastern Suburbs. And then until I've got 2 GPS units to trial. And then I used it at Eastern Suburbs in training, and I've moved it around with different positions to figure out. And then I'm like, okay. So if they do that, all I got to do is then extend either the minutes or extend the dimensions of the field, but also depending what I wanted to do will dictate whether I make the field dimension smaller, bigger, longer time, shorter, rest periods. And I was like, okay, cool. So then we got a full set. And then we started using all of that and started really deep diving into it, but understanding the players and I guess the coaches and the playing style that they wanted. They go, this is how we're going to play. And, perfect time. The A-League now is in finals, playoffs, etc. And it's always interesting to see if teams change what they've been doing because it's finals. Do they lose sight of the task at hand? Are they going to We've now finished the season. We've developed who we are in terms of a playing style, etc. The next goal is ball at the back of the net and defend yours. You're literally trying to get points to get through to the next round to win it. It's not about how pretty you can play. So you always watch that and go, right, is a team going to go and do that? Or is a team going to stick to their guns and go, we're going to play the way we play? And it's really different to, club football and pro football, because that's a business. At the end of the day, what you win and how well you do depends on a lot of external factors. And what you do there will also bring in a lot of external factors. So I always love this time of the year when it comes to playoffs and watch teams. I'm like, oh, wow, they really are changing their way. They're literally just trying to get the win, because that's the goal for the next 3 weeks, is to get to the final and win it. Or is the goal to play pretty? That was beautiful playing football, but you've got nothing to take back to the club. So it's always interesting to figure that out. So for me, I'm still the same person that in 2009 approached, Albany United, because I applied for All Whites in 2014, I think it was. Yeah, 2014. I didn't get that one, so I was like, damn it. So, but the funny part was, I was training a lot of the boys already, and they were like, "Wait, you didn't get it?" I go, "Nah." So I did, and the type of person is like, it takes so much for me to get angry. Like it's no big deal. It's not going to change me. I'm still going to do what I'm going to do, because 2014 I didn't get it. 2015 I was still working and then training even more of the players. And yeah, by the time we got to 2019, I was in there, and it's 7 years later now, and been to 2 Olympics, under 20 World Cup, and soon in a couple of weeks off to the FIFA World Cup. So, looking from 09 Albany under 19 to now 2026, the FIFA World Cup, and in between with like Sacred Heart, Mount Albert Grammar, because I was with Michael Bult in Sacred Heart, Peter Smith in Mount Albert Grammar, and so funny at Nationals, they both ended up in the finals. And at that time, it was okay because there was only one real person doing the job, so you couldn't go, you're not allowed to train that. You know what I mean? and I understood it if I'm on the club, etc. But at the same time, I just wanted to help as many people as I can. And I never did things for money. And I'm not telling other SNCs or other coaches to do what I did. I understand life is a bit different for everyone else, but I'm just someone, if I can see things happen in the future because I know what I'm going to do in the next X amount of years. And I'm someone that always keeps my foot on the pedal and just keeps going, working really close with I guess with coaches and athletes. So yeah, I just kept to my guns, never worried about money. I said, money will come, but am I doing this for money or am I always go when I leave this place, what you gonna remember me for? Like I can remember me for every time I saw him, he was a good guy. He always greeted, he always spoke. Sometimes I'm blind and deaf in a crowd, I can't see people, but if you message me, I'll get back to you. I'll try and help as many people as I can before I leave this place. That's literally my goal and how I work with everyone to this date. But yeah, I chopped and changed in there, all over the place. But how I wanted to do this is more like, fire questions through, and it can be as specific as you can with S&C, sports science, football, and I like to make things interactive. Yeah.
It's a great idea, Sunz. And again, I think given that we've got some time and there's some people here, obviously, that you've worked with previously, it'll be I think a great format. And I guess whilst people are thinking of what their questions would be, I do have one, Sunz, that one of many, but the first one. You're now, of course, at a stage where you are working with players that are in multiple club environments across multiple countries, and then they're all coming into, I guess, a camp situation or soon to be going to a competition. Now, there will be transitions, I guess, between the S&C coaches that they have in their clubs, whether they're in A-League or whether they're in Europe, and then they come into you. So how do you manage that transition or the communication between you and other S&C coaches to make sure that when the players come in, you do have a good understanding of what their benchmarks might be or what their levels are at? So that'd be great to know more about.
So generally, our clubs, whenever our players in the national team, come into camp and we have a FIFA window, we get data from the clubs. We get 4-5 weeks data. We get to then map out and go, okay, this is what their training looks like based on the numbers. Then we do our camp and we send it back. And then they get to see the load in our camp, but how they play for our team versus how they play for their club is completely different. So the roles in our club, in their club may be a little bit different to the national team, or the national team and the club have very similar roles. So for us, it's going, okay, if for example, if you do a lot more work in the national team compared to your club, then we speak to of course, the club and the performance team, like, hey, in the 5-6 weeks leading up to before a camp or tour, are you able to just each week ramp up some of the high intensity stuff so they can match the load when they come in versus if you come in from doing, for example, if you only do 50-meter sprint and then we're making you do 150, 3 times more that, can you at least bring them up to about 100, 120 or whatever it is to match it at least a bit closer? So that's how we work with clubs, I guess, in terms of, provide that. And not all clubs do that because not all clubs actually have an S&C. So funny enough, like you think, you're playing overseas and you're playing in this top league, it's sometimes the physio doing it. You got the physio doing that stuff and you're like, wow. So you have to literally speak to the players and they go, yeah, man, the physio does this, and then they've got like a part-time S&C that comes in just twice a week. And, this is high-level clubs as well. And you're like, wow, okay. And you in this delusional state that pro football is the creme de la creme and they'll have everything red carpet rolled out, but it's not the case. Unless you in, Premier League, etc., you got these things. But so I still do a lot of the boys programs that have got given the green light from, I guess, clubs to go, hey, yeah, you can merge some of the programs. Yeah, we'll use some of it with you. So that's great. And then, yeah, so basically it's just communicating with our clubs for any players that are selected. We're going to be, I guess, in camp in X, Y, and Z dates. Can we please get the last 4 to 6 weeks data? Okay, cool. And then once we develop a relationship, then that conversations happen like, hey, anytime they are selected and they're coming, you now know this is what their averages have been. Can we ensure they do that? They don't have to. This is just a conversation because at the end of the day, a club owns a player, not us.
Yeah.
So this is just a conversation to have that we're doing both a favor. Like, you do us a favor, but we also do you a favor by not, blowing somebody out on the field because they're underprepared for that. So yeah, and I guess it works the opposite way. If like they do a lot more at club than they do with us, then we'll top them up to ensure when they get back for the club, they do that. So some clubs will ask us, can you please do an extra da-da-da, or can you hit roughly these numbers? We don't just go, yep, 100%, because we got our own goals in sight. So we make sure those are ticked off first. And then if time, I guess, fits in for us, then we can sort of do that. Yeah, so there's a lot of communication and sharing of info.
Excellent. Thank you, Sunz. Any other questions from the group?
I might jump in as well, Sunz. Obviously, you've got fantastic experience across like different codes and sports. So I'll be really and working with those different athletes. So I'd be really interested to know, with a bit of a football lens on, like what is it you in the S&C space, performance space, like what is it you think are still some of the challenges and what's lacking, like in the S&C athlete performance space for football, and what other codes or athletes you can work with are doing very well that maybe, do you know what I mean, that maybe like we could kind of be more conscious of in like where are the gaps in football?
Yes.
And where are the kind of key things happening in other codes and sports?
For me, football is still in primary school stage at the moment. In terms of S&C, I think there's this big fear of lifting weights with a lot of players. Again, I don't know why they fear being sore. Pain is different to sore. When you train MMA fighters, you train rugby and rugby league, they've got knocked and smashed in the weekend and they're coming back in the gym and still lifting through soreness, not pain. So it's trying to get footballers to understand how this benefits you, because the biggest issue I have is, and it's been going on for years, is players will reach out, and these are sometimes not even players I work with. It's five more weeks left in the season. I'm getting a lot of niggles and I've got this and that. And I go, what's your S&C been like? What's your supportive work, your supplementary work been like? And it's very inconsistent. It's not heavy at all. And then, like I say earlier, I touched on this. You see this on social media and Instagram and stuff. You'll see like the Arsenals and all of that doing these prehab exercises, right? And people think that's all we should do. But you can still lift weights. You just regulate the volume that you're doing. So perfect example was like when I was working with Quade Cooper. And they're like, yeah, we never really lifted too much in season. And again, no, that's going to change now. You are going to lift. But we prep your body that when you go in season, we can still tap at a certain percent of strength so that our preseason, we go really high. So that when you start the season, in terms of your lifting, the drop off is at a better place than if you just did mediocre strength, which is what I call it. Like just sort of not really challenging yourself. Once you start your football training, you are going to drop off, but you're going to drop off here. But if we set our strength levels up here, Once football starts, of course, that focus is going to change. It will drop off, but it'll drop off at a higher phase. I get the boys, yep, you're only doing 2 sets of lifting and probably 70-75%. Even 80% will do 1 set of 3 to 5 reps. That's it. That's your heavy lifting. Then we do a lot of single leg work. We still tap that, but we go, okay, if we use the week. If the game is the high, then we look at in the middle of the week where the next high is in terms of our football session. So we got Monday to Sunday, we got a game on Saturday. That's our high exposure. Sunday is either recovery or off, or Monday is recovery, whatever it is. Tuesday is our start back. And then Wednesday might be a high. Okay, so we know where our 2 highs are. How do we fit the strength? Okay, do I put it after the first exposure of football, or do I put it on the Monday, which is the second day? And that's, some people go, oh, you need 2 days off, etc. But for me, that's manual coaches and copy and paste coaches. You got to work with who's in front of you. If you can lift on a Monday a little bit, what's stopping you from lifting again a little bit on Wednesday or Thursday? You'll only know the effect of this if you actually run it for 6 weeks, 8 weeks, a little bit. Don't get too carried away with it. So, everybody follows this philosophies of this is the coaching style now, and over the next 5 years, we might change in terms of football. Another coaching philosophy comes out in that sort of style, and they go, oh, you got to have the day after the game has to be an active, and then the Monday. Nah, focus on who's in front of you. Train them like, your cars go and race. They have to go to the mechanic shop the next day. You know what I mean? So our bodies, we go and play football. The mechanic shop is the gym, the physio. We've got to do that. So that's the biggest thing, is for them to actually understand it benefits you for a long time. If you want to have a 16-year career, that's what you got to do.
So I think like what you're saying there, Sunz, it's that education piece for that for the athlete. And is there still, like obviously education for like the coach and the staff, and like you said, I think what you've managed to do really well, and you keep saying, is obviously understanding who's in front of you.
100%.
So it's really key.
No, it's 100%, because you got players in a team where you've got 20 players and you got 10 of them that's got 5-year training history who will be the ones in the gym, and you've got another 10 that only have a year training age in them. So you've got this big gap, and you got to figure out at the start who's the ones that have a bigger training age and who's the ones that have a really small training age. Those are the ones you're going to have to split your time to educate them, to bring them up to speed. Hey, in the next 4 years, you need to have consistent training age in you.
Awesome. Thanks.
So we've got Tyler, then Peter, and then there's a question which I'll read out from Michael. But Tyler, if you want to ask away. I have to unmute yourself.
I think first. Peter had his hand up first, mate. He's got a couple over there.
Did he?
You want to go, Peter? I'll go. Okay. All right. Hey, mate. Nice to see you, by the way. Sunz.
Thank you, my man.
It's been a while. Look, you probably don't know this, but I moved down to Wanaka, Central Otago, as the FDM there. So, got a couple of questions around, I guess, touching on Jose's point around education. A little bit of context. In this region, everyone plays everything, and like every single sport. They're out running, they're kayaking, they're playing football, they're skiing. I've never seen anything like it in my entire life. It's unbelievable. But obviously, with that, they're smashing their bodies from quite a young age. So my question to you is, when do we want to start educating and try to kind of ingrain the strength and conditioning, I guess, philosophical lens into their thought processes, and how can we do that, first of all, for the player, the youth, or the whatever age? I'm interested to know your thoughts, the parents, and also the coaches, I guess.
And how old, or how young is the youngest you're talking about?
I mean, well, they're playing from from 5 years old, right? Playing every sport. But I guess, as I said, I look back to when I was a kid. I was taught this stuff in maybe high school. It went straight over my head. you know.
Yes.
And I ended up doing my ultra marathons and getting injured and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And I wish I just cared about it more, but the approach obviously didn't work for me. And I'm really keen to know, your thoughts around how we can do it in a way that's maybe hidden learnings.
Yes.
And at the same time, it's informative. So at least some things stick with them without pushing it too much.
100%. So what that hidden learnings is, and this is with older kids, but I have adopted this with my 7 and 8 year olds that I was training at Eastern Suburbs. You know,
Cool.
So like I said, I took the first half an hour, and I know sessions only sometimes go for 45 or whatever, 45 to an hour in teams and clubs, but you may have 2 to 3 sessions a week. You may take 20 minutes within the session and start implementing these body weight movements, or there's resistance work that can be partner driven, etc., that will bring about, hey, this is why we're doing it. But because the ball is floating around and then they're on the field, they still, okay, this is part of football, but then they understand the learnings from there. So when they get past that 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, and then they go, right, we start bringing bands now to training, and we've gone to 12 years old, we've got some kettlebells there on the side of the field as well. And we're doing a little circuit before training, a little 10, 15-minute circuit on the side, and then we go to our football. It's a lot easier for them to understand in terms of just flashing it at them at 10 years and 12 years. So I used to do a lot of hopping and jumping from 7 years old and above, lots of jumping, landing, body weight, throwing it out of plane, balance work, etc. So I used to do that. So by the time those kids came to that 10, 11, 12 in suburbs, they were already asking me, okay, when can we go to the gym? So once you start doing that and putting it on the side of the field and breaking it up like, oh, we'll do 5 minutes of football, let's go do 1 minute of this work. So hidden learnings like that and educating with the younger ones helps really well. And then once you know that 12 years and above, you're pretty sure that not where you want to go with sport, but you want to be better at whatever. Even if you're playing 5 sport, because your one mate's better than you there, or you better than that mate in there, you want to be better. And currently, you know, I work with a lot of that 12 to 19-year-olds in the high performance center that I'm at, and they all just want to be better. And they do currently play 5 different sports. So I'm not trying to smash them. I'm going, okay, how can I support you? Because I'm not going to control you, but I can educate you, and then potentially go, okay, you can miss one of those sessions out, and let's implement this S&C session because it'll be better for you in the long run. And then when you hit that 16, 17, we can take away 4 S&C sessions and now only give you 2, and you do more of your sport. So you're constantly flipping it. Importance, primary, secondary, primary, secondary. Does that make sense?
It does, yeah. Just to recap it, pretty much what you're saying is there are ways in which from quite an early age, you know, talking 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, you can have things ingrained in your football session off to the side, and then slowly start building it up to a point where by the time they get to 12, they're asking you, hey, you know, where are we going off field? How are we doing this? I think you're saying that just creates an awareness, right? So that you understand there's an importance of it when you get to those ages that you know really start to matter, which supports their obviously their exercise in a whole raft of different sports. So one quick one. Do you think there's enough education in the New Zealand football, I guess, coach education, you know, JL1s, JL2s, JL3s even, around some of the stuff? Or is there definitely a...
No. It needs to be more. Be more. Yeah.
Good to know.
Sorry.
Peter.
Just obviously just a couple of things, Sunz. Obviously I've had the experience, great time working with you. And I've just got a few points there. I think what you probably never touched on is, I think you, with being part of the staff, you created an environment there that was always positive. Even on the back of a shit performance or a shit result, there was always this positive that I think transcended for you. I think that was built on trust. I think as coaches, that's a massive thing between the staff and between coaches and players, that relationship there. Again, you touched on relationship. And always, and to this day, there's a term that you used virtually every session that sticks with me, was purpose and intention. And that's been my probably driving force through sort of the coaching I've done. That why are we doing it? What is the purpose? What is the intention? Are we getting that out of it? And I think that was massive. I think what you failed to mention as well is during that time at YBOP, you worked for free. It was basically, we as a club never had the money to pay. Arguably now probably one of the top, if not the best in the country in terms of S&C. It must have cost you, when I think back, it must have cost you a fortune, Mick. But
yeah.
It was probably a step in your journey. You touched on it a little bit, but I think as coaches now, as myself, as head coach, obviously having been at Mags previously, when you're trying to get coaches and getting support in, normally the first or second question that you get is, how much am I getting paid? In our discussions, and I remember at McDonald's up at Albany,
yep.
that was never even a question. You know, you're just like that. When do you want me in? What do you want to do? Is there a degree of autonomy, which you spoke on? And I think the Sacred Heart and Mags in the final at Nationals, that wasn't a coincidence. That was, we had the two fittest squads in the competition by a mile. So I think recognizing you for that. But I guess my question is, as coaches, we're constantly evolving, we're finding better ways and stuff for that. When I look back at YBOP and I look back to where you are now, obviously with All Whites and some of the other athletes you're working with, I guess what's your biggest learnings, or what's your biggest adaptations as you've evolved from that, what we were saying, 215 to now? What is your biggest learning? Because I guess the athletes not really changed. The way that we deliver and the way we work with them probably has. So I guess my question is, when you look back there, is there any cringe moments and think, shit, I was doing that, now I'm doing this, and how that's adapted?
I was always big on less is more, but I drive that more now. Like, I used to get like carried away, like, shit, we need to actually do this. That's because I take things personally. Like, if it is, I'm still very positive with a bad performance, but I'm like, no, that's my fault. How can I be better? And I'd forget about the plan. And I'm like, I'll try and squeeze something else in it. But now I've got to the point where stay the course. Trust the process and hammer down on it. So that's the biggest learning for me, is to just trust. I've always trusted the process, but I'll double down on it rather than adding anything. So I guess one of the players, I work with closely is Ben Old, and he spoke to me and he vocalized it and stuff. He goes, he's understanding now that keeping it simple works. You want to do so many things because you want to be better on the field, but there's only so much your body and mind can take. So figuring out that priority scale of what's going to give me the most value, use that. So yeah, I think keeping it simple, even more simple.
Perfect, mate. Thank you.
Great.
Thank you, Sunz. And again, there was actually a quote you mentioned earlier on, Sunz, about how simple and basic doesn't mean easy. Yeah. So again, I think that's a really strong message for people around, again, just because you are simplifying it and making it more digestible, maybe removing some of the variables doesn't mean that it's an easy thing. And obviously in a position and a role within that where it is a very complex role, and again, your role is to make that as easy as possible.
Yes.
Now, I do have one final question, which I guess I'll paraphrase from Michael here, which I think sums up things quite nicely. So you mentioned at the beginning, Sunz, how you're keen to create this, I guess, shared knowledge across codes. Is that something that do you have that network of cross-code knowledge for a coach? Like, where do you get your education from? And yeah, who do you go to when you want to know more and when you want to learn yourself in the S&C industry?
Yeah, so I have other S&Cs, so one is Lauren Lando, who's in the States, and he's, he was with Denver Broncos, and then he owns these massive performance centers, all Olympic athletes and UFC fighters. He's the head of football at Notre Dame University. Then I've got another one, Dr. Tim Gabbett, who's in Australia, that I've met and I spent 8 hours in NZ with, but he's like the load guy, and he gets flown around the world by Liverpool, the works, Klopp floating back in the days, we got hamstring issues, what's going on. So I've created good relationship with these two people, really, and we bounce ideas off each other because we think very much the same. Even though they're a lot older than me, a lot more experienced, we all on the same level of, in terms of, yeah, this is how we see it, but how can we do things better, or how can we make what we have better? And understanding that, yeah, like I said, when I'm talking about staying the course, is actually running things. The biggest message with those guys is running things through its period of time and being disciplined to stay for 8 weeks with something. You know, like if I'm in a football club and I go right to the head coach, for the next 4 weeks, we need to do this. Let's see what happens. Okay, so for the second 4 weeks of that, can we adjust one thing of that first 4 week protocol? And let's see what happens. So at the end of the 8 weeks, you almost have the same thing, but you only maybe tweak one thing. So it's about staying the course and being disciplined and patient to allow things to adapt.
Incredible. Thank you. And I think that's a great place for us to finish, Sunz. And sadly, with all of these workshops, they could go on for hours and hours and hours. But yeah, we're super appreciative of your time. And again, for those that have tuned in live today, again, I'm sure you've already got a lot from this. And for those that are watching later on, again, I'm sure there'll be many scribbles and hints and tips, etc., that you can take from this. And look, I very much wish you the best for the World Cup coming up. You're working with some of our elite athletes here in New Zealand, and I'm sure everybody will be cheering you on. And I'm hopeful that if there are any questions that people have, Sunz, afterwards, we'll be able to get in touch and keep this conversation and this connection around shared spaces, etc., all going.
No, cheers. Thanks for having me, guys. I love this again. Yeah, always happy to help.
Awesome. Sunz, the burning question was, and for you and Peter, which team did you warm up in the final then? Was it Mags or?
Good question, Jose.
Can you hear me? Is it breaking up?
No, or just to, thanks again, Sunz. Just to reiterate, Steve, and since exactly what Peter said, from knowing you and all those years, your openness and willingness to help people, there's not many around. So again, value your time and all the best.
Cheers. Appreciate it, guys.
Awesome.